Overflowing Great Lakes pose new threat for endangered bird. Glen Haven, Michigan. You peering through a nest. Yet trouble is brewing for the mew and for other piping plovers, already one of the Great Lakes region's most endangered species, as water levels surge during a rain-soaked spring that has flooded large areas of the Midwest. Pools are forming behind several nests along this beach at Michigan's Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore. And the Big Lake, their home could be one storm away from destruction. And this is one of them. The Great Lakes are reaching some of their highest levels since the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers began keeping records 101 years ago. Streets, many beaches are shrinking or submerged. For tourists or for piping plovers, it's a mortal threat. Squeezed out of the Great Lakes generally rise with the snow melt and rainstorms of spring and dip during later dry spells. Those minor fluctuations, but some scientists believe climate change is causing more frequent and intense shifts. Lakes Huron and University of Michigan hydrologist Drew Groenewald and climate scientist Richard Rood concluded in a recent article that if so, the piping plover's situation could become more precarious. Their numbers, all recovery projects are helping. 76 pairs. The next few weeks are crucial. Most of this year, but long-term prospects will be dicey until the waters recede. Piping plovers are a migratory species, breeding during summers in the northern U.S. and Canada and heading south to winter in coastal areas from the Carolinas to Texas. Once settled in, they spend lots of time on the ground building nests, guarding eggs, darting about in search of food such as insects, spiders, and crustaceans. Their plumage, at Sleeping Bear Dunes, home to nearly half of the Great Lakes plovers during spring and summer, breeding grounds are roped off and posted with keep out signs. Nests are topped with unleashed dogs are the biggest problem, said Erica Adams, a National Park Service plover specialist. They've been known to, in addition to serving as security guards, professionals and volunteers can perform emergency rescues if flooding is imminent. Van Zoeren, a research assistant with a University of Minnesota team that bans plovers, recently removed eggs from a nearby island as a storm rolled in. They were stored in even if the birds aren't flooded out, the rising waters make their lives harder. Follow John Flesher on Twitter at http://www.twitter.com/JohnFlesher. Search for location/city.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.